Basically, my 5-year plan, it's modeled after one Mr. Curtis Jackson. As he so famously said, get rich or die trying. I went on a road trip, and while I was out there, I uploaded a video telling people, I'm out here right now. And the next day in Oregon, there was a shooting at a school, and the person who had allegedly been the perpetrator posted on 4chan.
This story existed in the past because you were a modern version of the Book of Job.
It's mostly a jawline thing to me. Is that like where most of Giga Chad's power comes from? You're in a Pepe documentary. What was that experience about? What is that documentary about?
You could say that there was times in my life that were like inadvertently Kino, like when I made the Black Pill video, whatever, like people took that as like a Kino thing, and I was completely dead serious. I had absolutely no ironic or like character playing intentions about doing something like that.
Hey, welcome to The Create Unknown. I am Kevin Lieber. This is the home of Make Something Mean Something. We are live on Discord with our patrons, our dumpster crew, our $2 tots, our infantry, our illustrious baby gang. If you want to join us for our recordings every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, just go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown. With me, as always, is Matthew Tabor, who's about to intro our guest.
Real quick, before I do that, I want to mention that last week's guest, many kudos. Part of what we talked to him about was him breaking finally the 10,000 subscriber barrier. He was just on the cusp of it when we talked. Well, he blew up. This is the TCU effect. This is what happens when you enter the Create Unknown. It's been 7 days, and yeah, this morning I woke up and he had over 25,000. His videos popped off. Life is good for kudos. Congratulations to him. Eggy is the most famous Eggman since the Beatles' I Am the Walrus, and he's also known on YouTube and Twitter as Egg White. He's an American musician, streamer, and as you're about to find out, one of the most unique personalities on the internet. He has a tremendous loyal following of online lifers, people who adore his laid-back approach to everyday life and his gently irreverent takes on all things societal. He is a meme god. He is a freestyle rapper. He's a marathon streamer with streams that run the gamut from hip-hop to gaming to drinking and hanging out, and they often go 6, 8, 10 hours. His work has also appeared in major media outlets like CNN, Fox News, ABC, and NBC, because he was falsely accused by 4chan of committing a school shooting. In 2015, he appeared to suffer a non-fatal overdose on black pills, with one of his most viewed YouTube videos consisting of video diary commentary in his car, analyzing the societal dynamics between men and women. He's had some personal relationships on public display for both better and worse. He retired from streaming in 2018 for health reasons, but now he's back on the scene, and he's on my phone or TV every time he's live. His music has appeared in the documentary TFW No GF, and he plays a part in the Pepe the Frog documentary Feels Good Man. And we might actually ask about the controversial song that garnered the attention of law enforcement. But Eggy might be at his best on Twitter when he's tweeting about drinking coffee-flavored beer on a Saturday morning before he chops wood. It's clearly been a long road for Eggy, but here we are. So, Eggy, given how the last 10 years have played out for you, what at this point is your 5-year plan?
Well, thank you for the lovely introduction. And, basically my 5-year plan is it's modeled after one Mr. Curtis Jackson. As he so famously said, get rich or die trying. And basically at this point, I don't like to covet money, but basically, it's more of just kind of like get better in life, get everything better or die trying. And so that's where I'm at. I'm ready to, I'm always ready to give what it takes, or at least throw myself at the wall like a human dart, at a dartboard, and just throw myself, and try my discernment of life and try to figure things out, that I have generally not understood. as a young kid, I was in special education classes, and they said I was going to be a human vegetable that relied on social services to feed and clothe myself because I was just too gosh darn incompetent. And that was relatively true, yes. But at the same time, through trial and error, I've continued to work things out in this life. And, in 5 years from now, I would certainly hope, considering that this persona, if you will, has basically been about 5 years running now. And things have been a bit rocky, but I think have ended up better than they started. Maybe I hope to be better in 5 years, or if not, then I don't want to be morbid, but I'm going to give what it takes. I'm going for it. I'm going for gold.
Well, you had a monster stream just a couple weeks ago. I mean, the indications are that things are going pretty well right now. What happened with this stream? Because I didn't catch all of it, and I woke up the next morning and I think you were just finishing. It's like sunrise when you were finishing.
Yeah, I believe that one was about 11 hours. For the record, there has been a couple times in the past where I did do 24-hour streams, but these were 2017 and very early 2018 before I sort of began delving into coping with my issues in life through drinking and things like that. So I kind of had a little bit of a better grip on my schedules back then. So it was a little bit. In any case, yes. So this particular stream, it started off as any other. And I was just playing video games and hanging out, the usual chill stuff that I enjoy doing. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I was sent $1,000 to watch a film on YouTube of another YouTuber who I am familiar with named King Cobra JFS, who's been around on YouTube for many years and has been quite a character for many years. And that we had actually more of an overlap maybe than I knew, because I guess we were both considered to be strange, like isolated men or whatever, But anyway, so I was sent $1,000 to watch this hour-long documentary. And basically, that just kind of opened this floodgates, which ended up, overall, I received $5,000 in donations that night. However, due to this high, intense atmosphere of madness, I just sort of felt that I ought to match the energy that was going on with this sort of contributions and everything that was going on. So I conjured through magic into my hands some pharmaceutical pill. A couple, and I basically consumed these in a vast quantity of alcohol and caffeine and all kinds of things like that, and it basically sent me into a wild delirium, a wild cash-fueled, mania-fueled delirium, where I bit through a cell phone with my own teeth, and I'm very lucky I didn't break my teeth. But I don't know, I just completely kind of went kooky. I went kind of kooky, but I woke up and I had a lot of money, and I was back 2 days later for a Halloween stream after 11 hours of complete madness. So basically, it didn't get me too knocked off of my pivot, and I've been reinvesting the money that I made for very many good things since that time a couple weeks ago. So overall, yes, it was all right, and it wasn't even the craziest stream that I've done, but it was a crazy stream, yeah. And sometimes it just gets like that. I don't write any scripts. I don't really have very good organization in life in general. I basically just turn the webcam on and I turn the microphone on and I say, "What's up? What's going on today?" And then we figure it out.
What was the craziest stream, if that wasn't it? Because you're talking about this, and I spent a lot of time in Las Vegas and have for a lot of years. I don't hear stories like that coming out of Vegas. Like, nobody's like, well, I won 8,000 playing craps and then just bit through a cell phone.
What kind of cell phone was it too? What kind of cell phone? I need to know.
It was to be fair, it was already a little bit busted, and I was in the market for a new one, so it was sort of like I even got sent specifically like $200 from somebody at one point during the stream saying just get a new phone, whatever, just because it was already pretty beat up. But it was a $99 Huawei Honor 6X, and I bought it 3 years ago. Now I have a Moto Power G, and it still works. I bit through the screen, and it still works. And I didn't break my teeth, and I still have to use it to play one of my phone games because the Motorola doesn't support one of the phone games I like to play. So I'm still using it, and it still works just fine. But my new phone is like substantially better. It's very clear when you have them together. But So it was good. It was good. It was a good upgrade. But anyway, yeah, I guarantee you, if I was in Vegas, I've only been to Vegas one time, and I was approached by prostitutes at least like 6 times while I was out there, and they let me walk around with like a big 40-ounce malt liquor, just walking around on the street in public and stuff. So if I won $8,000, I guarantee you there would have been a lot of crazy stuff going on. That's just me. That's just how I like to live. You know, I mean, I like to party. I enjoy partying very much. Anyway, but unfortunately, yes, there was one fateful stream in 2018, which was what precluded my not streaming for some months afterwards.
The retirement, right?
But basically, for one reason or another, it started off very simply. I was playing Counter-Strike, and nothing unusual about this Counter-Strike, but for one reason or another, and I do believe it was that I was a little bit off mentally. I was a little bit unstable mentally. At the time, I'd kind of had some things going on. I just finished filming for the Pepe the Frog documentary, and then I had gotten into a fight with a girl that I was involved with, and there was some family stuff. I was just kind of not on my game. So what happened was I drank a liter of rum, perhaps even more than 1 liter of rum, in about 2 hours' time. And I wasn't on any pills or anything like that. It was just straight up just the alcohol, although I think I was on some caffeine. But in any case, basically, I got blackout drunk at my computer. I know my clothes were taken off. I believe I was vomiting. I tackled my computer to the ground. I think I might have just collapsed on it. I'm not 100%. I don't remember exactly for sure. I think I was calling people on my cell phone just randomly to like get in, like trying to like fight them. I think I was like
still active the whole time. Was it still streaming?
There was thousands of people watching, and I didn't even know. I was completely blackout drunk, so I didn't even know what was going on. But there was like thousands of people that were watching. Yeah, it was basically I had never had such a shameful time, and it wasn't even like the other night. I probably made maybe $30 or something that night on the stream. You know what I mean? It was just like I was just like mentally I basically just hit a tipping point mentally, and I kind of just had like a total alcohol fueled manic depressive breakdown of total psychosis in front of thousands of live viewers. And I woke up with no clothes on, and yes, I've been sick. And I woke up, and it was just I looked at the the only reason that the stream had ended, for somehow or another I had like ripped my power strip out of the wall. I don't know how I did that because I felt like I was unconscious, whatever. But so I plugged everything back in. I kind of cleaned myself off. I was in terrible condition. I think I uploaded a little video being like, I'm alive. Don't worry, I'm alive. And then I then proceeded to take the stream down. Funny thing, I got no strikes on the video. Did not get struck down. I took it down on my own accord, but it was funny that YouTube just didn't really mind that. It's been kind of hit or miss with me before. Like there was times in the past where there would be like very meager things. Like maybe we might be watching a YouTube video. This is something that happened recently on a recent stream, and I didn't get a strike for that. But there was a time in the past where I got a strike because there was a YouTube video where a girl's boobs came out on the video. Wow. And I got like a nudity strike, so I couldn't stream for 3 months. This was back in like 2017, I think. But then now it's like at the stream where I chug a whole liter of liquor, and I just basically go on a total, like just all the way destructive rampage, and it's like totally cool for YouTube. So I don't know. I get mad at YouTube sometimes, but they've overall they haven't treated me the worst, I guess. But that would be the craziest stream. There's been some crazy streams in a fun way, but it's like the craziest, like out of control. Like I didn't get out of bed for like a week after that, just reassessing what am I doing with my life. I'm like, how did it come to this? That thousands of people are watching me like rip my shirt in half while chugging liquor and I'm screaming at my. I don't know. It was out of control. It was absolutely out of control, and thankfully, I've never been so out of control again. I stay relatively in control compared to that nowadays.
What was the point where you decided to come back? So now you're doing the streams again. Obviously you took a break. Was there like a moment where you felt like I'm really willing to give this another shot and I'm going to do things differently, or what? Yeah,
well, it started in 2018. Now, so I had taken some time off that summer. And basically throughout that summer, I was just laying in bed playing video games. I was kind of like, I'm just sick of it all. My life is going in a bad direction. I'm just some bum or whatever. So I'm blocking that side of things out. I'm just going to basically focus on just gaming, and I'm just going to block the world out or whatever. But then I was also listening to a lot of music still all the time. So basically, I hadn't made music since early 2018. But I was listening to a lot of West Coast music, and so I kind of just got this itch. You know, I'm just listening to this music all day, and I'm laying in bed and I'm gaming or whatever. I was listening to a lot of like O3 Greedo and a lot of like Shoreline Mafia, and even like some of that old Mac Dre and stuff like that. And so finally one day I was just like, oh, I just couldn't. I had that itch. I had to scratch. I had to rap. So I got this beat and I made the song "Don't Call My Phone," which was like a West Coast type beat or whatever, West Coast type song. And I wasn't even on YouTube at the time. I had actually deleted my own channels. I wanted to walk away from it. So a lot of stuff was archived out there on some archive channels out there and stuff like that. But basically where I was at, I just kind of was like, I'm done with it, you know, and I just kind of wiped my presence for that time. But I'm like, oh man, you know. So I did make a new YouTube, and I uploaded the song, and then I just had to on unlisted. I don't think even to this day, I think it's still on unlisted. I don't think I ever actually published it on my YouTube channel. It's still on there though. But anyway, you know, I just kind of got in the groove, and I believe after like a couple weeks, I put that song up on SoundCloud just because I was kind of feeling like maybe I did want to come back and just do some music again. And I did kind of hit a little run for I did like a handful of songs over that next week. But then when I did the music, or when I was getting back into doing the music, that's when I got hit up by this Primink guy who wanted to do a video about me with the whole Oregon thing. So I'm like, oh yeah, sure. He was some guy, he had 2,000 subscribers. I'm like, yeah, I'll tap in with them, and sure, y'all give him some cliff notes or whatever. So I gave it to him, whatever. All of a sudden, the video goes crazy. He has 2,000 subscribers, but it does like 300,000 views in like 2 weeks. And everybody, my Twitter is just like thousands of new followers, all this stuff going on. People are like, who is this guy? What's up? Boom. So due to that, then I'm like, well, gosh, you know, I don't have any presence on YouTube right now. And I was not even really using social media that much. I'm like, crap, you know, well, all these people, I was like, maybe I should just do a couple streams just for the people. They don't really know what I got going on. They don't really know who I am or anything about me. So maybe I'll just do a couple things. And then that's what kind of got the ball rolling again, was with that going on. Then I basically still laying in bed, you know, I still was just like laying in bed and just like propped up against, because I was sleeping on like a pull-out couch bed. So I was like propped up against the back of my couch and just like taking questions and stuff on my streams like that. And then basically one thing led to another, and the ball kind of got rolling, and got me back on my business. And so, and since I had other opportunities and things that were coming along with that exposure from people finding out about what had happened to me at that point in time and things like that, it sort of breathed new life into my opportunities and what I had going on. So then I was like, yeah, all right, I'll just kind of roll with it, and here we are. So,
and you mentioned the Oregon thing. If anybody listening doesn't know exactly what happened there, can you give a really brief summary?
Certainly. So basically, I'd kind of been a little bit of a pariah on 4chan due to the fact that I was on there a lot, and I identified myself, which was kind of against the culture. You know, it's an anonymous thing. But due to certain things that had happened over a couple of years' time, I had began identifying myself. And so eventually people got really sick of me. They felt that I was just kind of, you know, I wasn't in tune with the right kind of culture. And so we kind of had a little spat, and I sort of went my separate way. But following that, I went on a road trip to, you know, sightsee and things like that. And I ended up going out to the West Coast, the Northwest. And while I was out there, I uploaded a video telling people, oh, I'm out here right now. So if anybody remembers me from 4chan, you know, I'm kind of lonely. So if you want to hang out and get lunch or whatever, just hit me up. And the next day in Oregon, there was a shooting at a school. And the person who had allegedly been the perpetrator had posted on 4chan saying, I'm out here, I'm going to do this. And there was a quote that has been sort of, it's infamous now, of like, some of you guys are all right, don't go outside tomorrow and stuff, like whatever it is, you know, some of you guys are cool, don't go outside tomorrow. And so all of a sudden, boom, the shooting goes on. Immediately, somebody sends in a tip, oh, there was this post on 4chan. Immediately, like, okay, 4chan guy in the Northwest, so they started putting things together. And then, of course, I had this YouTube where I'm talking about all kinds of things that sound like I'm a crazy, antisocial, you know, isolated, a loner, radicalized by the memes and whatever else. And so people put this together. They're like, oh, I bet they would totally believe that he did it. And just as like a fun thing, you know. And yeah, they did. They immediately, you know, it was just like, whoop, you know, instantly. And I didn't even realize it. I didn't even realize it because I had woken up that day and I was getting an oil change on my car before I went back to the second half of my road trip, and I opened 4chan to read some things, and I pull it up on my phone, and it's just like picture of my face, picture of my face, picture of my face, picture of my face, and it's just like all across the whole site, and I'm like, something is not right. Something is not right here. But I didn't realize it hit the news until, because I didn't have any social media, and then I opened up my phone, and the only thing I used was Snapchat, and I opened up my Snapchat, and all of a sudden I had like 100 new friend requests, and I start accepting them, and it's Fox News, and it's New York Times, and they're all trying to like, they're sending me Snapchats like, hey, can you like snap me back? Are you alive? Or did you kill people today? And I'm like, all this stuff. So yeah, that's basically what happened. I didn't do it. I was sort of blown up for a minute until people realized that it wasn't me, and then it all kind of died down. But it was sort of like this big spotlight, this national spotlight that sort of like, was my first big exposure.
Yeah. So that's that's the kind of ultimate wrong place, wrong time combination of like 17 different factors that result in something really bizarre. I mean, you mentioned, look, I think it's safe to say that nobody wants to open their phone, go to 4chan, and see a dozen pictures of themselves. Like, this is definitely going to go badly if this happens to you. But what happened, like what was the aftermath like on that?
Well, actually, the way that I handled it was following everything. Like, I still had all those people added on Snapchat, and they still were continuing to message me. They wanted to have me be in the newspaper. They wanted to get the scoop from me. Oh, how did this go? And my reaction to them was I basically cussed them out. I'm like, you're out here, you're saying I did all this awful stuff. You don't even know who I am. You don't know anything about me. And now you want me to give you a story that's going to get your paycheck for the week or whatever. You're getting something for you. I'm getting nothing, except maybe like a few minutes of like, I'm not complacent. I'm not involved with what you're running. I'm not with that. I'm not going to give you anything. Don't talk to me. Don't just I basically cut the line. Now I actually did. There was a couple of guys who were more sympathetic to what I had gone through from like Storyful and like something else, who actually I did continue to talk with them like on the phone from time to time for some months afterwards, just kind of like they were kind of giving me some life advice and things like that. So that was all right. That was pretty decent, I guess. But overall, I basically just sort of totally turned my back on it. So I'm not going to talk about it. I just sort of had my spat with the boards. I'm doing my own thing now. I'm going to kind of go a different way in life. And then that was sort of when I ended up moving, and I started dating the only girl who I've ever dated. So I was dating this chick, and I was living in a new place, and I was having a new job. And so it was a whole new leaf for me, which then ended up going terribly because I ended up, the job I had it ended up being like a shell company, and I didn't get paid. So then I had to take out I had to pawn some of my belongings, because then my girlfriend, she got fired from her job. So then we're like living in this apartment with like no income. And then I had to pick up 2 jobs to basically like cover what we didn't have, while she was trying to get another job. And it was just a whole lot of stress and a whole lot of mess. And it ended up just being terrible. And it basically totally drove me to the point, after some months of working 2 jobs, then I quit those jobs, got another good job, which also ended up turning out to be a scam, because it was like you had your trial period, then you get hired on for full time and you get all the benefits. Nobody ever got hired on full time. They just basically would like bring in waves of like, you work there for 3 months or whatever on the trial or whatever, and then nobody ever actually got hired on to full time. So all of a sudden I would go into work one day for no reason. I was like, oh yeah, we decided you to make the cut, so you're fired. So then I had no income. And then my girlfriend, she was going to be going to college. So then she was kind of like going over to spend time with her family who lived out of state. And so I'm there in my apartment, and I can't pay my bills, and I can't get a job, and I'm trying to do YouTube stream. That was the first time I did like YouTube streaming. So I'm just trying to scrounge up a few dollars to make ends meet. And it just ended up, I did end up getting through my lease, but then I couldn't afford to renew it, and I didn't have a job, and I was getting kicked out of the apartment, and I was just basically just going through a whole lot of crap, and I basically just lost my mind a little bit there, and which then I kind of just, my life just pretty much imploded, and then I found out my girlfriend was cheating on me, so then I broke up with her, and then I moved into this basement where I've lived for some years now, and I basically I just didn't really have the drive to want to like get back on my feet at first for a while before I kind of got into the streaming. And now I kind of have a nice, comfortable relationship with my family where I just kind of do it and I sort of take what I have and what I earn and kind of use it towards the household. So like, I kind of like pay my share of in things like that. And so it's all kind of turned out to be, much better than it was at one point. But yeah, that's a little rambling there. But anyways,
I want to point out why I like you, Eggy, because it's basically the whole story that you just told, which I've heard before. Okay. This story existed in the past because you are a modern version of the Book of Job. Okay. And if for the people who are not, biblical scholars, the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, has a book in it, where Job is basically tested by God. It's just terrible things happen to Job over and over and over. And it's just like, what Eggy said, it's one thing to the next, and this job is a scam job, and the next one is a scam job, and then when does it end? And this was testing Job's belief in God. At what point will he forsake God, because it's just too much to handle. It's a good book, by the way, and Alfred Lord Tennyson said it was the greatest poem of ancient and modern times. Well, Eggy, your story is, you could have the Book of Eggy. And if you do pop an autobiography at some point, it absolutely needs to be called that. But it's an incredible testament that you've had how many reasons to stop all this stuff? A lot. Like you just outlined like a dozen different reasons why it's a good time to unplug from the internet forever. But not only have you not done that, you've sorted things out, taken time off, whatever it was, gotten some creative stuff going, picked up the music, picked up the streaming. You're not only still here, but you're back like 50 times greater than you ever were. That's incredible. And I just want everybody to celebrate how amazing that is.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Yeah. I mean, I guess since I came back in 2018, it was one of these things where I guess it got to a point for me where when like I said, in 2018, I did kind of wipe stuff away. I did delete some channels and things like that I had, but that was like the last time I did it because I kind of came to realize, I guess after that whole episode where I was like, oh, I'm really done this time. Then I'm like, well, at this point I kind of have enough. I've been around for long enough that, I pretty much have left this mark. I've sort of left this mark that it's not going to go away if I delete a channel. It's not going to go away if I delete a page or whatever the case might be. It seems like I've kind of have made my mark in a way that it's not going to be something I'm just going to turn away from and go back to, working as a grocery store cashier for minimum wage like I did for however many years before that. It's like I'm kind of here. I'm kind of linked in arm to arm, like we are the world. I'm in the conga line. So it's like, well, we're here. It's not. It's like I get some people who will tell me they're like, because we have this term called LDAR, which stands for lay down and rot, which is basically to like just totally give up on life and just like basically lay in bed and be like, I'm just gonna never get out of bed again. But basically what I tell people now after having been on both sides of it, it's like I wouldn't hold people, like in a negative light for choosing to just, like throw their hands up and say, screw it, because obviously like people will go through some really terrible things, some things even worse than I could possibly imagine. And I think people do need time to grieve about things, and it's hard to know when the sunshine might come out after that rain. But I had this song I did called the Depression Freestyle, where I was like, basically, the message of it is, I gave up on everything and I just laid down ready to die, and I just laid down facing the mattress for like a week, and then I just rolled over on day 8 and I'm like, well, I'm not dead, I'm still breathing, I'm still walking and talking. All right, I'm gonna get up, have some coffee, I guess. That's I guess kind of is like the analogy for a lot of what I've been through is kind of like, I just want, like there's so many times where I'm just like, no, this is it, man, this is it. It's never gonna be good. It's over. And I'm just like ready to just like be self-destructive to prove that point. And then, then I lay down for a week and I wake up on day 8 and I'm like, man, I'm kind of hungry. I'm going to the store, So it's like, oh, well, we're still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still walking and talking. So, all right. So what's next,
One thing that I want to circle back on, because I didn't know this, and I find it really interesting, and I think that our listeners should recognize the power that someone else can have just from taking a little bit of interest in another person. So because of that Primink video, it sounds like that was really a catalyst to kind of get you back interested in doing this sort of stuff and making music again and doing the streams, that opportunities arose. And that really was not something that you manifested. It manifested itself apart from you because Primink did that about you. And I think that we often don't kind of recognize the power that we have to positively affect other people's lives just by being encouraging or just taking an interest. And that can be like an incredibly great thing that I think everybody needs on some level.
Yeah, I mean,
it worked out for Primink as well. I mean, so it's also selfish to take an interest in somebody else and do something good with them, give them, some attention and kind of tell their story. It's good for you too. Primink is a guy I talk to, fairly frequently. And I just had to look this up to see, he's 6,000 away from 1 million subscribers. Well, Eggy, you said that when he made his video on you, he had 2,000, so
Yep.
it's really what got him going too. So it was a resurgence for you. It launched his channel, and a couple years later, he's doing really well. So that's cool. It kind of works out for everybody when you do what what Kevin just pointed out.
It's true. Positivity begets, I guess I don't want to sound too much like some kind of guru or whatever, but I do feel like, depends, because there's some people who will take your positive energy in like in a vampiric way. But I feel like if you have like a type of positive thing going on, and there's like a whole lot of positive energy and frequencies or whatever you want to say, thinking, speech and action. I think that it does something, absolutely. And even to that effect, when I came back after my very unfortunate 2016, after I decided to come back that late at the end of that year, that's when I started back on YouTube again for that time, because I was going to be alone for my birthday, and I'm like, gosh, I'm going to sit here alone on my birthday in December of that year, and I'm like, it's going to be my birthday, and I'm just going to be sitting here alone drinking or something. I'm like, oh, that's awful. That sounds terrible. Maybe I'll just log back into YouTube one time, just to maybe if there's somebody out there, we could have a few people. And we did. I ended up having a birthday. We probably had like 30 live people or whatever it was, but we had this birthday time, and it was a lot of fun, and it was definitely more fun than I would have had. And then that was since I wanted to start with a clean slate. I'd been through a lot of pain, and I wanted to just basically like leave all my pain behind, all my judgment behind, all of my felt like my negative aspects. I wanted to just go in and basically come in with like a pure mindset of just like appreciation and all these different things. And then that was when I did my first stream marathon, which was January 2017. I was still working a job at the time also, but I streamed 8 hours a day for 30 days just to like really apply myself to this live streaming thing in a way I never had before. And, and my channel had like, 2,000 subscribers or whatever at the time. And a lot of those were people that had basically subscribed over, in the past when I had done some crazy thing or whatever that they had been laughing at. And so it wasn't all the same people that had subscribed. We probably had anywhere from like 30 to 40 people watching on average at a time over those days. But it was just such a nice atmosphere, and we all got to know each other. Everybody that was there got to know each other so closely and personally, because a lot of people were like unemployed, and they were like, maybe what you call a NEET, N-E-E-T, which is no education, employment, or training. So just kind of like basement dwellers. For no offense to them, of course, but that's kind of what it was. But we all kind of chilled, and we all got to know each other more, and everybody had such a great appreciation of the positive, chill kind of energy that we had going on at the time, that I received thousands of dollars even from that small audience. They had such a deep appreciation for what I was doing that I received thousands of dollars in donations that month. Then I realized, I'm like, well, holy crap, I guess maybe I could do this live streaming stuff. Maybe I could really do this for real. I never applied myself to that degree before. And so then not too long after, I did some traveling. I went to LA for the first time. I met up with a couple different YouTubers and worked with them on a couple different things. Kind of like, I consider that like my initial investment of a large sum, that I received from the internet. But then I kind of came to realize, I'm like, well, I don't have like necessarily a fixed rent in this basement living. I pay however much I break bread, but so I'm like, well, if I'm still living here, and I make this amount of money compared to like, it was more than I made bagging groceries and being a grocery store cashier for minimum wage at the least. So I'm like, well, why don't I just do this all the time then? It kind of seems like I'm gonna go for it. And so I did, and I quit my job in 2017, and I've just been doing this stuff ever since then. But yeah, it's and that you really need to have a positive mindset for, because basically you're going out here every day, boom, you're doing your thing, and if you get too down on yourself like I have, there was times, I think in 2018, I think I made like a very small amount of money that year, like overall, just because I pretty much just had spent a lot of time just laying in bed and drinking the money that I did have away. Pretty much, I was pretty much down to just about nothing. That it was not a good year, but that's the thing about it. If you're not in the right mindset to be out here and applying yourself to your passions when they're also your income, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone in a negative way. You're kind of shooting yourself in both feet, so to speak. So it's always good to just keep an objective mindset and not let your emotions kind of take control of you and like throw you into a negative reaction.
You mentioned that you didn't want to come off as a guru with with any of that, but you are absolutely a spiritual guru for thousands of people on Twitter. This because I watch it all day, every day.
Well, I'm not sure how I would take that. I mean, I tell people to take what I say with a grain of salt, if not the whole canister. Watch your iodine levels, but watch your blood pressure. But
but no, people feel good about what you tweet and what you talk about and the things that you show them about your life. They feel good, and you can tell when you read the replies and the discussions. They're having fun with it. It makes them feel good about their lives. Like everybody's happier when the Eggy tweets pop up on the timeline. They really truly are.
Well, that's one thing too, is that having been started from a place where I was on there telling people that life was completely hopeless and there's no hope and the world's going to end and everything is pure, unbridled, sadistic misery that you can never possibly even comprehend. And then going around and being like, well, my life has been terrible, so I'm going to go on a clean slate now, and I'm going to try to I'm going to try to turn a new leaf. Having been on both sides, yeah, I could tell, because there's been a couple times over the years where I might drink too much and I might get a little in my feelings, and I'll be tweeting out like, oh, this girl, she doesn't like me or whatever, something like that, and you'll get like a bunch of replies. They're like, bro, this is embarrassing. Like, I'm sorry, but like this is embarrassing. So it's like you kind of learn, even if you have some days that aren't the best, you don't go out and pull out your phone and be like, oh my gosh, today was just, oh my God, I mean, like, I'll show my emotions or whatever, like in certain times, when I feel like it's, right, and I will open up about certain things, but it's like, you got to just know, like what you're putting out there to people. And I didn't know that really. I was very isolated. I didn't have really a social circle. I never had been on a date. I worked a crappy job, and I pretty much just lived alone for the most part for, after I had graduated high school and everything, like after I dropped out of college and all that stuff. So I really didn't have the best grasp of that all. I was kind of just in like my own like existence and sort of existing in my own space. And then, eventually after, being on the internet and being, kind of picked apart a little bit, you kind of learn about some things, and I kind of learned, and I tried to get an understanding of my perhaps sort of blunders that I had, or what I would consider to be like a blunder, or sort of like a faux pas or whatever in the past. It's to grow as a person. Not to say that I'm gonna like, I wouldn't say that I would ever like just totally change up and be like, oh, I'm doing a total 180 and I don't believe anything I used to believe, and not like that. I feel like an actual like evolution, like a natural growth as you learn and understand more about just, my own humanity and my own way that I am, after just having sort of been a little stunted in that regard in prior years.
I don't think that you have to. Plenty of people on Twitter are all up in their emotions all the time, all the time. It is a lot of what I would consider incredibly unself-aware tweets that get sent all the time from pretty much everybody. So I do not think that you need to feel isolated on that regard. I think it's pretty much you're in rare company if you're not the person engaging in that type of behavior on social media, and especially on Twitter. I do want to talk about one Twitter thing, and that is the Giga Chad meme that you tweet all the time. Is it
Yes.
called the Giga Chad, or is it just Chad? The guy with like that ridiculous. First of all, if no one's seen this meme before, it is this. Is it a real guy or is it like CG? Is that a real man?
Well, basically, it's the best way that I understand it, and I'm going to be totally honest with you, like wherever the origins were from, because it started off in a certain type of way, but basically it just became a popular thing in my particular favorite Twitter sphere, which isn't even a very big Twitter sphere. Like some of my favorite Twitter accounts have never been over like 1,000 followers. You know what I mean? But like I recognize that they're extremely humorous and they really inspired some of my tweeting style and things like that. But anyway, I believe that like a lot of the pictures, like the grayscale pictures, I do believe are enhanced to some degree. The guy, the main Giga Chad, his name is Ernest Kalimov, and he's a real, like he looks similar to those pictures. Like he does look similar to those pictures if you see pictures of him. And there's pictures on his social media that go back like several years. So I made some rare Giga Chad memes out of like old Kalimov pictures. But yeah, like the grayscale pictures I do believe are enhanced to some degree, because it's sort of like these are guys who do this modeling, and there's like a woman who takes the pictures and then like digitally enhances them or alters them, whatever. And you can see this in at least one of the pictures I know, because there was one, I think, where she's like in the car with the guy. And not to say that he is even like a totally radically different looking guy, but like there's like the originals out there somewhere, and then like her edited version, it just like makes him into like totally like some kind of like Dragon Ball Z character, you know what I mean? Like so you can like see where she kind of enhances like some of his features and stuff like that, like in this editing. So yeah, I do believe they are edited to a degree, but yeah, I enjoy Giga Chad tweeting very much. It's sort of like well, in my circle, we've been waiting for whatever it's going to be. Like over the years, you had Pepe the Frog got killed by being tweeted by like Nicki Minaj in 2014 or whatever. That was like the first time Pepe got killed. And then Wojak got killed because he turned into the doomer bloomer Wojak YouTube videos, blah blah blah, and stuff like that. But like nothing has really came for the Giga Chad crown yet. Some people have tweeted it cringishly, but I don't know, Giga Chad, he's just still got too much power to be defeated as of yet. So I know at some point
it's mostly a jawline thing to me. Is that like where most of Giga Chad's power comes from? His jawline is like 90% of his face.
Well, the thing about Giga Chad is that is true, but it's also sort of in the vein of the original smug Pepe, and how and there's still you still have your tuxedo Pepes, and all these different Pepe derivatives are still very widely used these days. But I mean, it's just Giga Chad is even when it's a different picture from like the most widely used one, it still is like this like total sense of like total smug, oblivious, but also in the obliviousness, like still just emanating raw power over the soy jacks or whatever, you know what I mean? Like no matter what, like you won't, whatever he says, even if it's totally ridiculous, it's gonna be right. He just automatically is just he's just there. He's extremely powerful and smug and oblivious to whatever. In a way, it's almost like I hope that this isn't interpreted the wrong way, but he's almost like pure autism, because they say that autism is a hyper-masculine trait. So in a way, it's almost like Giga Chad is like this sort of corporeal. Is that the right word? Whatever. He's sort of like this manifestation of pure autism. in a way that I can really appreciate.
I want to ask about Pepe, because you mentioned Pepe. You're in a Pepe documentary, which I haven't seen yet. What was that experience about? What is that documentary about? Just about the origin and evolution of that meme being so popular?
Well, basically, I'll try to keep this kind of short and sweet because I could easily ramble about this probably, but I was approached about the film back in 2017, and originally it was going to be more of like a 4chan-centric movie, I believe. Originally I had a larger part in the film, and we had like some things that were going on. It was like a lot of like meme-ish people that were being interviewed at the time. But the thing of it was, I believe that this was probably an organic decision on the part of the people that were making it, for one, but also I do believe that it did have to do with the marketability of the film, is that it ended up having more of a angle of like, Matt Fury, who created Pepe, created the comic that Pepe is from, and how basically his creation was taken by the evil, 4chan, Donald Trump people to make it all evil, and then like his war to try and, take it back away from all the evil, bad people. So it kind of, I think it kind of, not to say that obviously there was an element to that, but it sort of became more of like what the film I think is about overall. People still said that it was a very well-received film. Critically, it had very good reviews. And but basically, like, people from my corner of the internet were like, oh, because they didn't try to change things up on me. They didn't try to paint me in a certain way. They let me just kind of, it was very natural with me talking with them of my experiences. So a lot of people said that know me. They're like, oh, yeah, you really hit it out of the park. But then they like hated everybody else in the movie because then everybody else is like, and then the evil 4chaners, they conjured the magic spell for Donald Trump with their evil frog cartoons, and stuff like that. And it's not even that they're trying to, like the directors and stuff. I enjoyed working with everybody on the film for my part very much. Everybody was all very chill. Nobody was judgmental at all. Nobody had like a condescending view of this or that. We all had a very good time with it. But in any case, that's pretty much what the movie is about. And it's funny. I went with Simeon Jimmy, Mumkey Jones. I was on his podcast, the Is It Kino, where they reviewed the film, and I think he probably summed up in his view, I think it was what a lot of people felt, was that basically Matt Fury wouldn't let it go. Like, he could have just let it go, and it probably would have, or he could have handled it differently, like the whole situation. He could have tried to, he could have just played it off, or he could have went about it a different way, but his way was basically litigation and sort of like, get your hands off my meme, or I'm going to sue you and stuff like that. And it ended up, I think overall, approaching it that way ended up burning him when he could have maybe handled it differently. But I guess it is, hindsight's 2020. I'm not him. Maybe if I was in his shoes, I would have felt a similar way. So it's hard to say, but yeah, that's pretty much what the movie boils down to, is sort of like the creation, the blossoming of it online, and then like the evil. But then at the end, I think because then it was used in the Hong Kong protests, so then it's like the fresh light of freedom and democracy that then he represents the other side. You have like the evil, mean people side, but then also the good people side. So really, he's a more complex and more multi-leveled, multi-layered character than that so many people have different feelings about. So, but hey, it did well. And I don't know. I still talk to the guys that made it. Maybe they might end up doing another movie someday, and I might be in that movie too. So who knows? We'll see what happens. But
and this is called Feels Good Man, and you can watch it pretty easily. I know it's on YouTube for a couple bucks, but it's also on Amazon Prime. If you've got Prime right now, it's free to rent that movie. So check it out on Amazon, YouTube, anywhere else. I think it came out. Does August or July sound right? It's a couple months old.
Well, it had been screening at certain film festivals before the pandemic, and then they had some digital screenings after that. But the official release date, I believe, was in September, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, so it's a pretty fresh one out there. And right now, I just pulled it up on Amazon. 4.5 stars with nearly 500 reviews. So this is probably worth 90 minutes of your time.
It was it received a little bit better reviews than my other venture, That Fuel with No Girlfriend. Which, to be honest, I wasn't really like, I wasn't so much in that movie as I was sort of like, they kind of took clips and stuff of me to sort of accentuate certain parts of the film with my consent. I still got paid, so that's cool, and I got to be, I'm an official film composer now. I can use that. I can wave that around to feel better than other people. But yeah, I was more involved in Feels Good Man overall. Yeah.
And we both, Kevin, you watched TFW No GF. I think the same night I did. I think we both watched it the moment it dropped. Was that part of the Sundance thing on Amazon where they put like 20 days of films on?
Well, it was South by Southwest because actually I had
that's what it was.
I was booked. I still ended up going down to Austin. I was down in Austin for a week. But I'd been booked to go down there and stay down there for the premiere. I was in, I had my pass and everything like that. I was going to do a concert down there like they had, because you obviously had South by Southwest is music performances also, but I wasn't going to be in that part, but we were going to do, there was like an underground show that I was going to be doing, so it was going to be like a really big, huge thing for me. And then it all just totally felt like a stack of cards, But I still had a good time because when I went down there, they hadn't closed down the restaurants and stuff yet. So I was still down there partying and stuff with just a couple other people when I was down there earlier this year. But yeah, it was going to be a huge break, and I was so pumped. And then it just, and so I got a little depressed in April. I kind of didn't do a whole lot in April as far as really anything, but then I kind of got back to it after that.
That was a great film. It kind of profiled a handful of guys who are a little bit of the 4chan types that we've talked about how they live their lives, why they live their lives that way, what they think about the world around them. And it was a really honest, fair portrayal that, I didn't know going into it how that was going to get played, because just like with Feels Good Man, anything that's, Pepe themed, it's just some of these topics, it's so easy to play them a certain way that kind of gets away from what it's really about. And, and I thought that film did a decent job, but, like you said, you had a little bit of stuff featured in it. You weren't one of the subjects of the documentary, but you had some stuff featured in it. You had a song in it. And what was the role of that song in the film?
Well, from my recollection, it was completely irrelevant, and it had absolutely no reason to be in there whatsoever. If I don't remember exactly where it, from what I recall, because I only really watched it the one time. I got sent a screener copy months before it, but the first time I watched it, I sat down for Dick Masterson from the Dick Show. They did a live. Me and a handful of other people that he had on, they all did a live viewing, and it was funny because he's like, man, Dick didn't like them at all. He's like, oh, these guys are a bunch of losers. Why don't they just get a girlfriend? They're losers. So it was I was sort of contrasting him on that watch along or whatever. But anyway, yeah, from my recollection, it was just basically out of nowhere. It's totally not in context at all. It's all of a sudden the song just starts playing, and it plays. And then it just all goes back to something else. So I don't know if it was supposed to, maybe I didn't grasp it. Maybe it was supposed to signal some sort of anger, because it's an angry, intense song. But yeah, to me it's just kind of popped. It wasn't like a segue that I could foresee it. All of a sudden we're just watching it. It's just I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, here we go. So I don't know. But hey, no, it was a poppin' song. It did a lot of numbers even after getting banned a lot of times. So I mean, I guess they just saw me, they saw I had something on my hands, and they said, "Hey, we want to pay you a lot of money to not tons of money, but a substantial fair amount, I would say, to put it in the film." And I'm like, "All right, yeah, I'll sign on the dotted line. Thank you very much." Whoop. Yeah.
But what was the song? I mean, how does a song get banned? What was wrong with the song?
Well, basically, so I wrote the song. It was called Alec Manassian, and the reason why I decided to write that song was the history behind it. There was a guy who I know who's a trucker from down south, and he wanted to stop being a trucker. He wanted to be a rapper. So he's from down south. He loves Suicide Boys. That's his favorite rap people. So he's gotten into producing, and he was doing these songs where he was he was a bigger guy. And he had done metal vocals in his high school years or whatever. So he would kind of be like this, so he was rapping like this, and he wanted to he wanted me to do something that was going to be where I was going to be he was trying to make something like that type of music, which I had never done at that point. So he was so I'm like, well, what if instead of me trying to be all low and guttural, what if I just totally like spazzed out and just like, "Rah!" I'm like, I've never done anything like this. I don't know how it would be. So I'm like, well, what do I do? I'm like, I'm gonna try and I want to try and like see what I can do like a song like that. So what does it need? It needs to be really full of violence and sex, and it needs to be just like, drugs, just like it needs to just match whatever I'm talking about. It needs to match like this like craziness. So the first thing that came to mind was like Elliot Rodger, because there had been there. In fact, even now there's a new rapper I just heard about now. They just dropped a mixtape. There's basically a new rapper that calls himself like the Elliot Rodger rapper or something like that. Somebody sent me one of his songs the last time I did a stream, and it was actually, it was very. I think that one of the guys I believe is actually African American that's like in their collective or whatever. So like, it's not like some pencil neck guy that works at McDonald's or something that's like, I don't know. It's like it actually sounds pretty professional and they got some good skills and everything like that. But anyway, but I knew back in like 2017 there was like a guy who rapped under like Big Gucci Elliot Rodger or something like that back then. It's like, well, they kind of, they've already, so what other kind of crazy stuff has happened lately? And then I thought of, oh yeah, there's that Alec Manassian guy. All right, yeah, I'll just come up with something about that then, so it could be like crazy and have like, like a relatable, because I had done, one of my first big songs I did was called Stevie Steve back in 2017, and that was where I was rapping about this guy Steve Stevens who did this like shooting attack or whatever, and he had like live streamed it on his phone or whatever, and it was really egregious at the time. It was really like, like really disturbing, and so I wanted to bring some like, I started off like on that note because it was just something, what does people rap about? People rap a lot about like, they talk about a lot of like guns and drugs and stuff in like mainstream rap music. So I'm like, well, why not add like something like, I'm adding a little something like that's isn't just all, generic. I'm gonna like put a little like dash of something on there that's gonna make it like relative to something tangible, in my opinion. So anyways, yeah, so I just go and I'm like, I basically sat down and I did the whole song in like 5 minutes. Yeah, I got a beat from this Russian guy. I found like the most like, like it was so intense. I'm like, oh, it's definitely gonna go crazy. So I just made the song and I'm like, running through these hoes. But I was supposed to be a double entendre, as like, obviously this guy did like a vehicle attack, but then also I'm saying like, I get so many women, I'm just running through them. You know what I mean? So it was supposed to be like this whole double entendre thing, but then basically the song was just like, I do drugs and have a lot of sex and do a lot of violence and I'm crazy and I'm psycho, and that was basically the whole whatever of it. I didn't really think much of it at the time because I thought I almost didn't even upload it because I'm like, oh, this doesn't even like sound good to me, but I'll just throw it out there on Twitter or whatever. And so then I did, and I had about like 3,000 followers at the time, I think, something like that. And I went to the store and I came back, and there's this video which a guy made, which has been around like the music video where it's like spliced up images of like shootings and like Winnie the Pooh dancing and all kind, like doing Gangnam Style. It's just ridiculous. This ridiculous video. But that video that the guy had already made, he downloaded the song, made this little video within like 30 minutes, and it already had like hundreds of likes. Nothing I'd ever, it was totally unlike anything I'd ever done, because I had done music before, and it would get, people would recognize that I did something, but nobody ever really like cared that much about anything I'd ever done as far as like music. So I did this, and all of a sudden it just goes crazy and it just goes totally nuts. And I believe Primink's video actually, which is now, it got taken down by YouTube, and I think it actually got taken down by YouTube because he had like 10 seconds of that song in there, and YouTube will ban videos that have that song in it now. So I think I helped boost his channel, and I think in an ironic way that boost eventually ended up, with that video getting taken down, whatever. But anyway, yeah, and so I put that out. All of a sudden, yeah, people were just like, oh, that's like, they thought it reminded me almost of a way of how I'd been on YouTube, in 2014 and 2015, and I would get like, 5 views on each video I'd upload or whatever, and all of a sudden then I did a Black Pill video, and it did like 30,000 views within like a few days. People were just spreading it everywhere, and I never, and the attention at that time was so overwhelming, I ended up deleting that YouTube channel in a fit of, drunken rage. I'm like, oh, this is too much. I can't handle it. I can't take this. I don't want this. Which ended up, they didn't stop it. but yeah, it was like that. And then all of a sudden, then in 2019, next thing I know, all these media outlets, Canadian media, is doing things to like, they wrangled me in to be on this program where then they like grilled me about the song. And I didn't think anything of it, to be honest. I really didn't. I never, at any point, I even did a little video on my channel where I broke it down. I'm like, each piece of the, where I'm talking about like this drugs and violence, I pretty much kind of ripped it off of like a whole other lot of rap songs. Like I ripped it off of like Eminem songs and stuff like that, which all have like millions of views on YouTube for many decades, and they've all been platinum records and stuff like that. And I pretty much just like ripped those lyrics off. But then when I released it, then it was like on British news. Oh, this is the most violent, horrific song. It's on Canadian news. Oh my gosh, this is audio terrorism. This guy's definitely out of his mind. It was on German news. They said that there was a guy who shot somebody, and they looked through his Spotify playlist, and that song was on his playlist somewhere. And so then they like were in my Instagram DMs and saying that I was, I'm making people into monsters and murderers from my music and stuff like that, which I don't agree with. But yeah, it was just like a song that took me about 5 minutes, which was just a vocal exercise, more or less, to try and see if I could yell loud enough to do a song with another guy. And it kind of took a life of its own and just went totally crazy. So that's pretty much the story of that song. Yeah.
You do bring up a really excellent point, which is how there is this weird, I don't even know exactly how to articulate it, but I think Coffee Break maybe brought up at one point the double standard sometimes on YouTube over how certain things are allowed and celebrated and will have 100 million views, and then other things which are like microscopically different, we'll say, are banned, and you can have your channel deleted. And it's like, well, I mean, logically, you're going to have a really hard time explaining to me how like this one thing is the most incredible thing we should all be proud of, and this other thing should land a person in jail.
Yeah, the way I had it explained to me was like, oh, this is basically like, they're like, this is a real thing, and like this is real stuff that this isn't something to play about. This is, this is shameful. This is something real that happened. And I'm like, well, there's a rapper who I like called Jose Guapo, and he was kind of big more like a few years ago. He hasn't really had a hit since then, but he has a whole mixtape series called Osama bin Guapo, where he like basically says Osama bin Laden, and he's like Osama bin Laden because he's killing all of his like opposition, like all of his, he leaves all his people shot up and dead, and like he's blowing people up and stuff like that, but he's such a real G and such a real gangster that he just kills everybody, And then, I mean, of course, there's other examples too, but that was just like what comes to mind. I'm like, I mean, it's not like I'm in the song. I'm like, oh, and then I'm reading off like somebody's particular name that was involved, or or like, and then they got what they deserved, or something like really sadistic or evil. Like that was totally not my intention. It was just like basically just pick a random thing that happened. Okay, and can I yell about this and include sex and rock and roll and violence and craziness? Okay, yeah, that's just go. That works. So it wasn't even like a big thing about it, but I guess and I do understand we do live in like more polarizing times, so there's been like people that will like come into my comments and be like, oh yes, Eggy, the incel lord, he is our god, and and he and all of our martyrs and blah blah blah. I'm like, whoa, listen, I'm like, it's you're taking something that isn't there, you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, and you had people back in the day, once again, to bring up Eminem, I know it's kind of probably like a tired cliche analogy, but I mean, I remember people when I was in junior high when Eminem was like kind of breaking out on the scene, like mainstream, like in the early 2000s. There was people that were like, doing things that they were like being, they were doing things that would probably be considered, to be like antisocial or whatever. There was that influence that you could see back then. People would bleach their hair. I remember I was in English class and I got like I had like therapists or something sicked on me because I was writing some poetry that was inspired by an Eminem song, and it was basically poetry about like I was going to come to school and do this and that and bad things, but it was all like a poetic. It wasn't literally going to do this. It was all like a poetic sort of dramatization that I thought, and I got inspired from an Eminem song to write it. And all of a sudden, I turned it in for my assignment, and all of a sudden they're like, you need to go to the office right now. And I walk in, there's a bunch of people all there. They're like, you're going to kill somebody? Whoa. I'm like, no, I'm a poet, So I guess basically this has been a continual, oppression throughout my life of my creative and artistic expression. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it does have to do with, maybe if I had got signed to a label. I had a couple offers from like Interscope Records and Sony. They wanted to basically like get me like on the ground floor, so to speak. And so maybe I would have more protections if I had like a media link like that. But I'm not really I wasn't really looking for that at the time because I knew it was going to be something really crappy and really like very low pay and a lot of work that I'd have to do, and I might lose my own creative control. So I didn't want to get involved with anything like that at the time. But I feel like maybe if you did have somebody who's more powerful and more wealthy that would stand to lose their money or whatever, or they would be affected negatively in some way by your music not being able to be put up on the platforms or whatever, then maybe that would give you a little more leverage. But that's just something that I didn't have, and I still don't. But it's not like that's my whole thing. It's not like that was my whole goal, was to get into rap to just be as violent as possible. You know, I just like to do things that express whatever type of feeling that I want to express at the time, and just to see if I could actually create something. Do I have the technical ability? Do I know how to work my audio and everything like that without any formal training, to then see, could I like produce something that will match the vision that's in my head, sonically, lyrically, atmospherically, and so on.
Yeah, I remember Eminem, didn't he have an entire song on his first album that was just about killing his wife?
Yeah, there's actually one song that's still up and has a lot of views. It's all about, like, I'm pretty sure the premise of the song, and I forget what it is, but it's like graphic. I mean, there's probably a few that match the description, but it's like a graphic one where he's like basically graphically depicting like kidnapping women, brutally sexually doing to them, and then like murdering them very graphically and everything like that. You know, I mean, creatively, you know, he paints a very, very vivid picture from an artistic standpoint. It's, you know, it's very, it's very powerful what he does with his technical abilities or whatever. But yeah, I mean, if I did a song like that, I guarantee you the FBI was already at my house last year because they found a live stream I did in 2017, I think it was. It actually might have been 2018, since this was 2019 that they came to interrogate me. But I had watched a re-upload of an Elliot Rodger video on a YouTube live stream from like 2018, and so they had to investigate me. They were like, "Did you know him? Why were you watching his videos? You know, what's your connection? You know, and things like that." So I probably, if I wrote a song and I'm like, "Then I pulled up at the fortress, I just kidnapped lots of whores, yeah, now we are going into the dark. Oh, there's not a light, there's not a spark. Oh, all you hear is the pit bull bark before they maul them. Oh, I'm gonna kill all them all. Yeah, the skulls are 8-ball and they're very clean. They got a white sheet. Ooh, you know, whatever." Yeah, I'd probably have the FBI at my house and be like, "Are you really killing people? Why'd you write the song? Are you really killing somebody right now? Can we go in your basement?" Or you know, that's probably what would happen. And so I don't know. I guess it's just a different time, maybe. You know, I guess that just might just be what it is.
Meanwhile, they're like,
Do you know what
Eminem, here's your Grammy on ABC.
I just need to do my reunion or my revival tour of Awfully Hot Coffee Pots. Guap, I get a lot of knots. Ooh, like Don Knotts. But I don't mess with cops. Oh, no, I just mess with bops. You know, I'm steady kicking freestyles, they never flop. Ooh, yeah, I got that chew, that gum drop. Ooh, yeah, I blew. Yeah, you dumb thought. Ooh, yeah, get away from my spot. Ooh, yeah.
This is just amazing that in the most casual possible way, you just kind of glide into the FBI investigation. They just dropped by. Like you described that the way I'm just like, yeah, you know, the FedEx guy came by today and made me sign for a package. But like you just throw that in and then break out into into some original freestyle. This is good. This is good stuff.
That's just my life. That's just kind of that's how it goes.
When we were
Yes,
this is like a total non sequitur, but I didn't want to forget. So before we started recording, I don't know how we started talking about cigarette brands, but I really don't know how we started talking about. Matt, do you remember how we started talking about that? We started talking about you
smoke Pall Malls.
Yeah, you were talking
about how you
Pall
smoke Pall
Malls.
Malls. Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't. But I always think of like this is back in the day when you could still smoke in diners and stuff like that. But, you know, like I always think when somebody has, they're coughing and they have a raspy voice, I think of like this really old person at you know, a diner at 6 a.m. that's smoking Pall Malls and drinking black coffee, you know, so no, I don't. But so I said this thing about Pall Malls, and then Kevin asked about Misty cigarettes. And if for the non-tobacco connoisseurs, they're a thin cigarette that women tend to smoke. And so we started talking about cigarette brands. And when we did this, you gave like a forensic profile. It was like watching Mindhunter of who smokes these different types of cigarettes. And so we wanted to hit you with a bunch of them so you could tell us who buys these. And who did you say smoked Pall Malls?
Well, in my experience, so basically now I've been out of the game for a few years, but I was a gas station cashier for many years, and I worked at multiple gas stations. I worked my way up to an assistant manager after 6 years or whatever. Anyway, but I would say Pall Malls, they were generally the cheapest cigarette. So you had people that were usually a little more impoverished. They were kind of living more paycheck to paycheck. If they didn't roll their own, they would go for Pall Malls. And they weren't bad, they would usually get, Pall Mall Reds. That's where you really get, Pall Mall Full Flavor. That would be like the real raspy people. You had some people that if they couldn't afford Newports, then they would smoke the Pall Mall menthol. That was the next thing. And of course, all these people, there was only one guy I could think of who actually smoked Pall Malls because he liked them, and he would smoke Pall Mall Light with the short. But all these other people, due to the fact they were smoking these cigarettes because they were like basically the cheapest and they got the job done, they would always buy the 100s. So like the only time I can remember selling Pall Mall Full Flavor in a short was like somebody who I'm pretty sure, I think when I first started working, I would sell them. I think they eventually just like died of cancer not very long after that. And then there was another lady, she was the only lady I knew, she would buy Pall Mall Straights, which is the non-filter. So we would carry like one carton a week for this old lady that was, she did not ever look well. I don't think she was even that old, but she had a stench about her at all times. Her skin was some kind of, she had like, she kind of looked like, who's that guy? Slimer? Is that from Ghostbusters? What's his name?
Yeah.
Slimer.
Is that
him?
Green one?
So basically imagine Slimer in a dress with a cane and like some like poofy white hair and just this, she would come in, one carton of Pall Mall Straights. And she would sit there and she had her checkbook. She, like her fingers, they kind of look like pretzel, yogurt dipped pretzels. Like imagine yogurt dipped pretzels, but like their fingers, they were very like thin, and she was very like sickly looking all the time. She would just come in and be like, and I'm pretty sure she ended up dying because I think I saw her a couple times like towards the end of my work, and she was on oxygen, and I hadn't seen her for a while, and I don't think that she, And then there was another guy, Chuck. And he smoked the Camel Straights. And I actually, when I first was out of high school, I smoked Camel Straights for a while. And I smoked Lucky Strike non-filter for a while, too. I just couldn't smoke that kind of stuff anymore after I kind of got into, I started dating the one girl that I dated for like a year. And she wouldn't, every girl I'd been with up to that point was a smoker. She was not, and she wouldn't tolerate it. So then I kicked it. But I can never get back into smoking non-filters after that because it just had such an effect on my voice. And so, like, it would really make me so raspy and everything that I just couldn't do what I like to do with my voice. So, but anyway, Pall Malls, low income, generally. Some older people, because it was like a more recognizable brand, I think, in decades past, would still do their thing. Yeah. But overall, for the younger people, it was more of an affordable cigarette,
I looked up the stats as you were talking about it, and Pall Mall is actually the number 4 most popular brand of branded cigarettes. Mm-hmm. The majority of people, by the way, will go for anything, or not majority. It's a plurality. So it's like 30% will go for anything. Mm-hmm. And then it goes Marlboro, Newport, generic or store brand, and then Pall Mall.
What is a store brand cigarette? Like Walmart has their own cigarettes? That's an honest question. I don't know anything about this. What is a store brand cigarette?
That is a good question. I'm not sure if I've ever seen a store brand cigarette that I can recall. Maybe that's maybe there's some
cigarettes?
state.
So I've got an answer to this. I have an answer to this. As an example of a store brand would be the cigarettes sold by the Oneida Nation in New York.
Oh, so they have native reservation cigarettes. Okay. That makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So they have a bunch of convenience stores, gas stations around their casino. So they're outside the official casino land. They're in the community. But they have enough of those to justify having their own label of cigarettes. And so that's kind of a house brand, the same way a place might have a house wine or something like that. So they tend to be cheaper, and that makes it an attractive choice. But
I was just thinking of like Costco brand cigarettes, and they're like the size of baseball bats. You have to like hold them with two hands.
But I want to ask a couple more. Who smokes Winston's?
Winston's, older men, absolutely older men. That was always my experience. I don't think I ever saw a young man smoking a Winston cigarette, but you always had, like, it was a guy who'd come in, probably had to be at least like 45 or 50 and up. You know, he'd come in, usually a little bit of like, maybe like a suit, like a guy that would wear a suit or something like that. Like somebody who would, like, let's imagine a guy, like a guy who's kind of on the up and up. You know, he keeps up appearances. He does his hair with the gel or whatever. He wears a little bit of cologne, stuff like that. When he's a little older, he might look like he has high blood pressure. He might kind of come in with his tie undone after a hard day at work or whatever, and at the office or the firm or wherever he's at. And then up to that, then also there was like an old guy who kind of looked like Winston Churchill. So I say, like, up to that point, you have like your younger, kind of like not quite retired yet, but they've kind of, been in a certain environment. That was like the usual guy, the type of guy that would smoke Winston, and then like up to like the retired version of that guy.
A guy that looks like he's named Winston.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, this is my cigarette. It fits me well.
Guy, yeah, he had the mustache. He was a little portly and everything like that. I mean, he'd always come in, and he was a very, very polite. So he kind of like, he kind of would like, he almost gave me like a little bit of, how would I say, inspiration, because he would come in and he would speak very much just so, and he would say, "I would like one package of the Winston full-flavored cigarettes, please." And he would just speak in such a particular manner, and he would carry himself in just such a particular manner, and he was always very polite and very poignant and punctuate and like that, So like I kind of, when he would come in, I would sort of mimic him a little bit, I'd be like, "Why, hello, sir. How may I serve you on this fine day?" And he, "Oh, well, yes, my package of..." Well, actually, after I worked at these places for a while, I would see the vehicle pull in from like the down the lot, and I would already have their cigarettes rang up before they even walk in the door, because I would just automatically know. When it's daily for years, you just automatically know at a point,
Yeah. I do want to do a couple more of these, because it's absolutely fascinating how granular you're getting. Like we could get a police sketch artist to draw the people you're describing. Like, that's how incredible it is. Yeah. So who buys Newports?
Newports. Well, prior, because they did come out, I think it was in 2011, 2012. That's when they introduced the Newport non-menthol, which then became an affordable alternative to Marlboro Reds. But prior to that, yes, there was, typically, I think just about every African-American customer that I would have that smoked cigarettes, they overwhelmingly would smoke Newport cigarettes, with a small demographic of older people that would smoke Cools instead. So basically every, or if they were, a little bit, like I said, the Pall Mall menthol 100s were sort of the, like the cheaper alternative to the Newports. But then you also had, they were just a popular choice for some, how would I put this? Lower income, maybe less educated, Caucasian women also. I don't ever, well, actually, no, I shouldn't say that, because, well, no, I'm trying to think. There was a couple Hispanic gentlemen I knew that smoked them also, now that I think about it, I guess. But they both those guys, I know, I'm not sure if they've never smoked those, because I know they were both involved with, so basically, let's say like some women who were more of like the trailer park living variety, not in any offensive way. I'm just saying this was my experience in my time. They would kind of maybe have some tattoos, and they would kind of maybe, conduct themselves in a certain type of way. But actually, the first girl that I was ever involved with, who had a bunch of World of Warcraft tattoos, she smoked Newports. And so when I was seeing her, I got in the habit of smoking Newports also. But it was sort of, they got to a point where menthol cigarettes and me just didn't agree. They didn't give me that punch that I got from a non-filtered Camel or a non-filtered Lucky Strike. So I couldn't smoke them after a certain point, because it just wasn't doing it for me. But yeah, she was the type of chick who, she had like a lot of tattoos. She was aggressive and would like get into fights with like people like in her apartment building and stuff like that. It just was what it was. So I don't know. She just had a propensity for smoking Newports, but it was a similar type of individual to that has been. But then when Newport non-menthol came out, then you had a lot of the factory guys who smoked Marlboro. that were like, sort of like the lower income, working class guys that changed over to the Newport non-menthol. Because I actually never smoked those, but I guess they were pretty similar allegedly, and they were like $1 cheaper a pack at the time when they came out. So
Okay.
So people changed over to the Newport non-menthol. And then there was one girl who was a very, how would I say, bubbly, very full-figured, but I mean this in a good way. I mean, she was like 6 feet tall and very curvaceous, just naturally. This black woman who worked as like she was like an accountant or something like that. She always had her hair done very nice. She was always smelled like beautiful perfume, and she would smoke Newport Smooth or Newport Blue or whatever it was. And she was like the only person that smoked those at this place I work. But she'd come in and she'd be like, she was always so just full of loving, positive energy. She would come in and be like, "Oh my goodness, it is so good to see you." Oh, and she would just tell me about her day, and she would tell me about this and that, and she would just always have a nice story, and she would always just be having a big smile. And so I still remember her after, she was a very nice woman, and she smoked the Newport Blues. So yeah, I don't know what that means.
So last one
Nobody
on
else ever
this.
smoked those.
Last one on this.
Anyway,
Is there a brand? Is there a brand that somebody buys this brand and there's a really good chance that they just suck? Like, is there a brand that's associated with just bad personality?
Probably not. Not that I could think of. I mean, no offense. I would say if somebody comes in and says, "What's the cheapest thing you have?" They're probably going to go outside and kick over your ashtray outside your store and look for cigarette butts, and they might try to rob you. And this goes for all, I'm talking about like old women to young guys and everything in between. But no, I would say probably not beyond that. But there is one type of thing that on a personal level, people who smoke menthol ultralights, that is the most disgraceful cigarette that exists. I don't care. I have gone to there's a guy who I know who he's recently a father. Congratulations to him. I'm not going to mention too much personal information about him, but he's a guy who had gone out drinking with for some years, and he smokes Camel menthol silver or whatever it is. So it's a menthol light cigarette, and that is just the most disgusting thing. I mean, it's like you might as well just breathe. That's not even a cigarette. You might as well just breathe air. That's not even a cigarette. There's nothing there. You're sitting there. You're sitting there just you just watch it. You just watch it go down, and you feel nothing. You can sit there and like smoke the whole cigarette in one pull, and you'll feel nothing. I'm like, why even? It's like you might as well just not even smoke. To be honest, it offends me. If somebody gives me, I would never. I just can't even take it from people. I'm like, I'm at the bar or whatever. The last time I was out was in September. I went to a wedding. We had some drinks, and this guy's like, "Well, I got Marlboro menthol light." Oh, no, thank you. Then I found a guy who had Marb lights, and that was okay. But I'm like, listen, no offense, you probably give me the cigarette for free, and that's more than I deserve. But I just simply cannot. It's a personal thing. I have a wall up about that. Menthol lights, they should not exist. Go big or go home. I'm sorry. Just quit smoking if you can't handle it. That's my personal 2 cents on that.
I need to know what the weirdest gas station story you have is, because I imagine that you must have seen some pretty interesting stuff. Did you work graveyard shift or what?
Oh yeah,
or all kinds of shifts.
I worked for 3 years in the morning shift and in the afternoon shift. So that was after I graduated high school, and then when I was in college, there was a lot of times I would work the morning shift and I would open the store, because then I would go and work like 5 to 10 or whatever in the morning, and then I could still go to my classes and stuff after that. But when I worked the night shift, yeah, that was a different beast, because then I worked the night shift from 2013 to 2015, and then I moved to a different gas station and I worked night shift there from 2015 to 2016, and that was over by college, so that was some extra crazy. But yeah, just a couple ones. I mean, of course, obviously a lot of drunkenness. So you have your drunken fights. Gosh, I'm trying to think. There was one time where a guy, I could honestly tell you like hours worth of stories, but I'll try to give you a few summaries here. There was one time a guy came and he was dumpster diving, and he was stealing bags of trash out of our dumpster. And then he was driving a car with no hood, and he was like loading the trash bags into his car with no hood so he could like eat the garbage or something. I call him Joe Garbaggio. That was the name I gave to him. I didn't realize it was like, we had a camera back there on the dumpsters in case somebody was trying to dumpster dive. So, but I didn't know. It was in the middle of the night. I didn't have access to the manager's office to like see the cameras and look at that. But I did see him like sauntering off into like the out. So like we had like the store and like the dumpsters to the side behind a locked gate, which he must have climbed or something. And he got in there to the dumpsters and he was like throwing the trash over. And he was like sauntering off with bags of garbage into like the nearby alley where he had his car, which it literally looked like a giant boulder got dropped on the car because there was no hood, and the car just like seemed like it was like curved up on the sides. I don't know. And he was then he came in and he looked like he was like trying to steal food or something. I don't know. So I'm sure he was probably in a really bad situation. He probably, I didn't like call the cops on him or anything because he didn't give me too much hassle, but he was obviously just really in a messed up situation. And then, there was one time where there was
wait, 1 second before you go to the next story. What is in the garbage bags that's of use? Did you like often throw away stale donuts and stuff? Was there good stuff in there or what?
Yeah, well, so I worked at this place. It's in the upper Midwest. It's called Quick Trip, and they have a fully 24/7 hot food service. And so basically, if something doesn't sell, it ends up getting wasted out and thrown in the trash. So I'm pretty sure that's what he was after, was like, whatever burgers or whatever had gotten thrown out. That's probably what it was. Because that's like a thing about that store is that that's not super uncommon, which is why they have cameras on the dumpsters. And if somebody's caught basically like pocketing waste food, then that's like an instant termination, because then you're not trustworthy. You might be stealing something else. Unlike other gas stations that I worked at, where I would totally take everything I marked off for waste, which I mean it was waste. It didn't sell, because I was in college at the time when I was working at the first gas station, so all the microwave burritos didn't sell. I put them right back I put them in the cooler, like behind the soda, and I would just, when I was done with my shift, I just pocket them, and they were waste anyway, and they're in the trash or in my mouth. I might as well eat these, save me a couple bucks on groceries. But yeah, so that's what it was. I assume that he had an understanding of that, and so that's why he did what he did. But otherwise, I'm sure everything else. Well, in this place, the food waste did make up a majority of the trash generally. That's like you had cleaning stuff and you had other stuff, but there was a particular trash in the like hot food service area that was just usually specifically more or less was going to have like the sandwiches and stuff, and they were wrapped up, whatever was getting thrown away was usually wrapped up, so it would be not totally out of the realm of desirability if you were starving to look for that. But then there was another time, because this particular gas station I worked at was sort of en route to a nearby casino. It was a few miles out, but there was a guy who was like a Chinese businessman who was visiting the area, and he had gone to the casino, and then he came back, and like his car had some kind of breakdown. He didn't speak any English, so he was like, I don't know. Then he decided that he was going to sleep in the parking lot, but he parked directly on top of where we would receive our fuel deposits from the tanker truck. So he parked his car, and also it was like a horrible storm outside, and so it was like this horrible rainstorm, and the tanker truck's pulling in to like put the gas in, and he's sleeping in his car like this on his steering wheel. And so I'm out there like in a rainstorm, and it's like 30-mile-an-hour winds or whatever. I'm like beating on his, and he doesn't speak any English. I'm like, you can't be on this. We need the gas. And he's like looking at me, and he doesn't know. He's kind of just looking around, and he's on his laptop and something. I don't know. That was a crazy time. There was a storm one time that knocked out the fuel pumps, like the service, and then there was another time I was working where it was flooding. It was flooding so much that people were driving by, and their vehicles were being submerged in the water. So then we had to call like 911, and these were people that were just like driving down the highway that didn't even live around the place. So then there was all this crazy stuff going on. There was a time where when I worked at the other gas station, my last one I worked at overnights, there was a guy who had tried to apply for a job at the gas station. He got his application declined because he had like a felony battery conviction against like domestic violence or something like that, or whatever it was. And they decided that he couldn't work there. And that like a week later, he pulled up in a stolen truck with the dashboard like taken out. He was driving it with a screwdriver, and he was asking us to go like cover him to go down to like the chop shop because he needed money to like get out of the state. Yeah, I didn't, of course, but and then there was like I said, night shift drunken fights were typical. There was one time a guy threw a garbage can across the store. There was one time a pimp and his woman, or his however you want to say it, came in, and she was like overdosing on heroin, and he was like dragging her around. Ooh. And she like had a seizure or something, and like threw her whole body into like this display. What? And like crashed it all down.
He
Man.
threw her. He threw
No, like
her.
he was like he was trying to hold her. They were like street walking or whatever, and she's all like, and she's like all like having a seizure or something like that. And he's like, "Don't worry about her. She's just tired." And she like was going all over the place and like threw her body into like a table of like merchandise or whatever that was on display and knocked it all over. Man, yeah, there was a lot of times. There was a lot of things, especially because I always worked weekends because that was the only way I could get full time on my first night shift before I got promoted to assistant manager, which was then all full time all the time. But I was just night shift. It was either work like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then have the weekend off, or it was work the weekend, but then you get full time. And like I said, I didn't have a social life or anything, so it just made sense to me to just work. So I always worked every Friday night, every Saturday night for, basically like well over a year and a half or something like that. So I got to see everything for a whole lot of, always the fullest, probably more than they saw during the middle of the week, I would imagine. Yeah. Lot of stuff. I tell you, it was some crazy times. And there's probably more I could think of if I thought about it some more, but yeah, it's crazy times.
Nothing wrong with working on the weekends, though, by the way. I did that for a while. I worked in bars, and it was always funny because the patrons would come in and they would, some of them would razz you for working while they're having fun. They're partying. It's the weekend, and you're, stuck behind the bar working. And my thought process there was like, yeah, I'm making money and you're spending it. So
right.
Who's the idiot,
That's a better time to bartend because, you got more people, if you're going to the bar on a Sunday night or you're bartending on like a Sunday, of course, not if there's like football on or whatever, that's a different story. But if you're like bartending off hours, you're probably not going to get the same kind of tips, I would imagine, as like big drunken parties, raucous weekend affairs.
Even though that football crowd isn't going to tip very well, but the Friday, Saturday night crowd, that's where you make your money.
Mm-hmm. I do need to point out, Kevin, that you and I basically started talking because I was that weekend patron as you were working at the bar. So you basically just called me an idiot. You just called me out on this podcast for being the moron who's out there spending the money as genius Kevin is sitting there making it.
Yeah. Well. Oh, well. I stand by what I said.
It's all out in the open now.
Yeah, it's too late. I'm not taking it back. I think it worked out pretty well. Do we have questions, or do you have more questions, Matt?
We do have some questions. Yeah, we have several. And if you're in the live chat, which a bunch of people are, this is your last call. This is to use the idiot at the bar parlance and terminology. Being like me and pissing away all my money to Galaxy Brain Kevin Lieber. Now's your chance to throw in a final question. Let me see. Oh, okay. So this is from Base Weight. This is a really good question because it's a topic we've talked a lot about in recent weeks. He wants to know when you're going to start on TikTok.
Funny thing, I actually got in on TikTok, I think at the end of 2018, if I remember right. But now, not to say that, I just don't think I probably would go back to it, but I did a few, and my initial problem with it at the time, which has probably been resolved many times over by now, but I first got into it because I was seeing people, it's the thing to do. But I wanted to go on and do like, some rap stuff. I wanted to jam out to some like rap songs or whatever. So basically I got on there. And I was looking for some I can't remember which songs I was even looking for at first, but like the songs I was looking for weren't on there. The one I did Light Bulb, what's that? I forget how that song even goes, but it's by Sosa Man and Sauce Walk. I should go look up the lyrics for that real quick so I could because I like that. It's a good song, but that was like the one. I think I did like a Drake song too, but how's that song gonna go? Oh, yeah. Well, hi. Twisting up fat bud, sipping on good mud, looking like a light bulb. Ooh, young gamer got moves like a chess club. Took too many drugs, feeling messed up. Ooh, the bitch ain't right, she get left. Yeah, on smoke, on top shelf. Ooh, gold Gucci got snakes on my belt. Young gorilla, I'm beating on my chest. Hey, I think that's kind of like what it went, but it's a very like groovy song. It's a really good like song to party to. And so I saw that on there, and that was good. But yeah, I can't remember which song I was even looking for at the time. There was some song I was looking for, and it wasn't on there. And I kept looking up for a few songs, and it just wasn't the ones I was looking for. But then I also kind of realized, I'm like in my late 20s, and I'm like out here like dancing next to like, teenagers and stuff. So I'm like, man, that's kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe I'm too old for that. So I know there's a lot of old people on there, but I just sort of did it a few times, and I kind of departed after that. But I don't know if it's if I get everything else in my life to a good degree, and it seems like that's a good move to go on TikTok and dance to my songs or whatever, then maybe I will. So I'll keep that on the table.
Excellent. And you mentioned talking about is it Kino?
Yes.
Got a couple questions about that. This one is from the Kino Corner.
Oh yes.
And it's a two-parter with James as well. They have a yin and yang question here. Kino wants to know, what is the most Kino moment of your life? And James wants to know, what is the least Kino moment of your life?
Oh man, I tell you, that's a good question. That is really good. Let me think about it. There's been a lot, especially over these last handful of years. If I was to say my least Kino moment, this is like, there could be ones a lot worse than this, but this is something I probably have never talked about before. So when I was a senior in high school, I was out of the high school. I was in like the disciplinary school because I had issues. So it was like the alternative school, basically like all like the kids that had gone to prison or like in single moms were all like in this school or whatever. But also when I was a senior in high school, my house burned down and we lost everything. So I was living with my grandfather for a while. There was a girl at school that I liked. I'm not going to say her name, but basically, however it all came together, I invited her over to my grandfather's house, and she came over, and we were like listening to music on my laptop, and she saw that I had been like, she looked at like my web history and saw that I'd been like looking through all her Facebook pictures.
Oh no.
It was like disgusted. But that wasn't even actually the worst part. I mean, that was pretty bad. But while she was there, my little brother, who's some years younger than me, he was playing Call of Duty on his Xbox. Now I'm a PC gamer. I don't do console first person shooters. Not my thing. My brother, he never played PC, so he knew how to do that. So he's like playing Call of Duty and like kicking butt or whatever. So this girl who I like, she's like, oh, why don't you show me what you got or whatever? And so I go on there and I'm like, just turning all like, like slow and whatever. I'm just getting the floor mopped with me or whatever. And she's like basically just making fun of me the whole time and calling me like a total loser. And then she just like basically just left. And she's like, all right, well, bye. And then just like left. And then she like never talked to me ever again. So that was pretty bad. That was, as far as bad things go, or as far as like humiliating things go, there was something even worse than that over the years probably, but that's one that I've kind of gone over some other ones like on my streams and stuff before, but that's pretty much, that was one that was pretty bad. It took me a while to kind of, probably a good couple of years to kind of get over just how embarrassing that was. Even though that, I had other things going on in my life in the meantime. Anyway, but gosh, my
kind
most
of creepy though that she checked your search history, or looked at your browser history. Like who opens up somebody's computer at their house and immediately looks at their browser history? That's kind of a creep move.
Well, she was kind of quirky though, she knew about memes. This is back before this is like when Facebook was new. So, but she knew all about like 4chan memes and stuff. She was kind of quirky, So that was just like something that she just like, I don't know. She was looking up something else and like, so she pressed like a button and then like it came up with like my Facebook whatever history. And then like it showed like, that I'd been looking through like her pictures and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah. But that was one thing too. Another thing, because she played for me the first time I can remember hearing was Losing My Religion. And for years afterwards, every time I heard Losing My Religion, I just imagined sitting on my grandpa's couch with this girl who had just like basically found me to be like a repulsive piece of slime and scum and just some kind of total creep. And we're just sitting there on my grandpa's couch listening to Losing My Religion on YouTube. Yeah, that did something to me for a while. There was another song too called what's that one? I think it's in like Grand Theft Auto. It's like, she's like candy, candy. Every time I walk, she takes over me. Do, do, do. Whatever that one is. Because I put that on a mixtape for a girl one time who also then humiliated me spectacularly. And so there was a long time after that where I couldn't listen to that song. I still really have it, but I really like that song when I was playing GTA. Anyway, my gosh, my most Kino. Ooh, it's hard to say.
As you're thinking of that, As you're thinking of most Kino, I do want to say real quick that I had an ex-girlfriend that got extremely upset at me because I was listening to I can't even remember what it was. I like country music, so it was some old country thing, and and I was listening to it, and she started asking me about it. I'm like, yeah, no, I love this. This is like some of my favorite stuff, and I never mentioned that, and I purposely did not mention music and movies and stuff like that I liked early on, precisely to avoid the situation you're talking about, where there's an association that's going to ruin, like if some girl ruins Kenny Rogers for me, like, what's the point? Like, why? What was the acronym? LADR?
LDAR, lay down and rot.
LDAR. Yeah. LDAR is happening for like 11 calendar months if somebody ruins Kenny for me.
Yeah.
And she just flipped out. She lost it. It was a massive blow up that I'd kept. It was like I'd kept like a secret family of children. I just never mentioned it because I didn't go into detail about the music I liked. So yeah, I paid the price for that one. But at the same time, I did manage to avoid bad associations with songs.
Why didn't she ask if it was that important?
Well, how do you ask about a thing you don't know about? You know, like she didn't know I liked it. So she knew it generally, but the specific artist is what she didn't know. You know, so she knew generally. But yeah, it was like it wasn't Kenny Rogers, but it was similar. You know,
I was gonna say, were you listening to that David Allen Coe song where he says the N word and it's like still all it's like it's still on all the jukeboxes and stuff like that. That was on. When I was like at the bar, I can't remember. It might have been a couple weeks ago or something like that. Now things are starting to close down again. But like a David Allen Coe song came out, I was like, how's it go? Like, trying like the devil to find the Lord, working like that word. And I remember like it came on, and it's like it's still out on all the platforms, and it's just like it's like a product of its time, so it's not censored. But it comes on, and like people are just like, what did he say? And it's like, it's been, I don't know, it's like being out in the country like that, most people aren't going to even like think twice about it, but just like being in like a bar of like younger people, and then like it comes on the jukebox or whatever, like the country playlist or whatever it is. So I'd say that might be, I could see that happening, like, what was that? But anyways, gosh, there's just one thing that comes to mind for me really about Kino, because I mean, you could say that there was times in my life that were like inadvertently Kino, like when I made the Black Pill video, whatever, like that was totally, people took that as like a Kino thing, and I was completely dead serious. I had absolutely no ironic or like character playing intentions about doing something like that. But I guess I would say back in 2017, I went out to VidCon. It's the only time I was ever out there, but I got invited out to help a guy he was doing some filming out there. And so basically I got invited out. So I went out there. And I didn't really like it. Now, I heard in later years that it was pretty fun, and I probably should have gone some more of like the new, cooler people that were out there. But it was all like very Jake Paul, like teenage girls, stuff that like was not what I was interested in. But I happened to run into this guy, Ice Poseidon, when I was out there, just totally by happenstance. Yep. I ran into I seen him streaming one day or whatever, and I said hi. And then like one night, I helped the guy do his filming or whatever. And I was kind of just walking around the grounds trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I happened to bump into Ice again. And then I ended up going with Ice and this guy, Kermit, I think they called him. I don't remember what his actual name was, but something like that. And I got into an Uber with them, and we went to like some bar like miles away. And so I was out at this bar, and he's like streaming or whatever, and he's like trying to put the moves on these chicks, and somebody just tagged me on Instagram about it. I retweeted or reposted it on my Instagram story after somebody mentioned it, or they tagged me in it again. But he's like trying to put the moves on these chicks. It's like some girl's birthday, and I'm sitting there, I'm me, I'm like black pill virgin, loser, never gets any girls, and the girl just comes up and like gets up right up next to me, and I just like put my hand, and he was streaming on Twitch or wherever it was, or YouTube or whatever, and it had like I can't remember, 10,000 live viewers or whatever it was, and the chat just goes like totally crazy, like, oh, Egg got your ass, he got you, he's taking your girl, that's like nothing like that's ever happened in my life, and it will probably never ever happen again. So like just for it to like come together just so hilariously like that, and just like such a total contrast of like everything I've ever been known for or like supposed for, even if it was just like just basically just a very casual like couple minutes of like this, and then then she went back to her party or whatever. That was pretty good. It came together very, very hilarious, because they didn't need to put me on camera like that. They're doing their thing. They're over talking to somebody else, but they just happened to like pan over to me, and it just came together so hilariously. And then I got to meet Glink and Vexed. And they were streaming at some
Nice,
hotel, like the YouTuber hotel where they don't think they could get in. But they ended up getting in though, but like they couldn't get in at the time, so they were out there listening to the security guards rap music. And then then like I was like busting moves or whatever, and I was totally like wasted. And then I ended up walking back to my hotel, and then later on, it was VidCon, and then so this actually probably this whole like experience, the whole VidCon experience was probably like the most keynote part of my life, because then so after VidCon, I checked out of my hotel. I went and brought my rental car back, and I did not get on my return flight. And I think prior to this, I was a little bit depressed, and so I just felt like I needed a change of pace. So I didn't get on my return flight, and I walked down to Venice Beach, and like I went just pulled in my brought my rental car back, and I walked down to Venice Beach, and I was just basically pacing around Venice Beach. And there's still some like archive footage that I was on one of the archive channels that I was filming about that. But while I was down there, then this guy who I'd met at VidCon, who I didn't know anything about him at all, but he knew me from like 4chan or something like that. He had to come down to Venice Beach to pick up one of his friends, and he saw on his Snapchat map that I was like down there. So he's like, "Oh, what are you up to?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm like literally probably gonna sleep on Venice Beach. I'm just gonna be like a beach bum, and I need a few days to like live a different life. I'll go book a flight back. I'll book a flight, get an Uber to the airport or whatever, whenever I need to. But I just need something different right now." But he's like, "Well, hey, you know what? Hey, you can come stay at my house." So then he came from Ventura, California. So he drove down to Venice Beach from Ventura, and then picked me up. And I went back to Ventura, stayed at his house. But he lived with his parents, so it wasn't really. He was a college student, and they weren't really like keen on me kind of hanging around. So then I went and I got like this cheap motel, like $60 a night or something. I stayed up there, and I ended up. He was friends with a DJ who worked with this rapper Kyle, who did this song "I Spy" with Lil Yachty. He was like his DJ. So basically, what happened was that I still ended up hanging out with these guys. They put on one of my songs in the vehicle while we were like driving around. They passed me the aux cord where I put on one of my songs. I think it was Stevie Steve, but they heard that and like, "Whoa, that's crazy. I didn't know you could do that." So then they were going back to a studio session, and I ended up going to the studio session with them. I did some rapping. He was doing like his DJ set or whatever. And so that was really crazy. And then I ended up just kind of bumming around, kind of going to my hotel and kind of bumming around the area for a minute. And then I ended up in Oxnard, California, and I don't remember why. I really don't remember how I got down there, but it was like really like it was like a super like slummy area. It was like really like kind of I was at this motel where you could smoke in the motel. And so I went and I was like chain smoking in the motel, and it was a rundown dump. So I had these bottles of beer, and I was like taking the bottles of beer on like the dresser was already like had like it was already all busted up. So I'm like busting the caps off the bottles of beer, and I'm drinking this beer in this slum, and I'm chain smoking these Marlboro 27 100s. And then I remember I got picked up, or I checked out, and I got into an Uber at like 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that, just drunk. I'd been up drinking all night, and I don't remember where I went. I went somewhere to meet up with those guys again, because then they went to Anime Expo. I think that's what it was called, Anime Expo. That's what that big one in LA that they had in July 1st, I think it was, something like that. So basically, I go catch this Uber wasted, then I go catch a ride with these guys, and they go down to this Anime Expo, and I'm not getting in. I don't have to pay, but people are like, they're having like fake passes and stuff, but I still was, because the line was like wrapped around like 10 blocks. So people that were already there, and had passes, they still couldn't even get in. But so I'm like around the whole area. I'm running into people that recognize me. They just see me on the Ice Poseidon stream, so I had like this little bit of like fresh clout going on.
Yeah.
I ran into some people that had known about me from 4chan and stuff like that. And then basically, we're running around going crazy. And then that night, I got a fake pass from somebody to get into a hotel that was for VidCon only. And I got there's a guy, Trihex. He's kind of like a famous dude, but I'd been following Trihex for years, because I even met Trihex. I went to Games Done Quick like in 2015, and I met him there. He didn't know, I didn't have anything to be known about me, but I still met him there at the time. So then all of a sudden, I'm in this arcade room hiding from hotel security with me, Trihex, some other guy, and like the guy who was like holding the camera for Trihex's like IRL Twitch stream. And they wanted to do like a DDR competition, and I had like a bunch of change in my pocket for some reason. I don't remember why, but I had enough quarters for them to like do their DDR competition. So like I funded Trihex's IRL DDR competition as I was hiding from the hotel security in this like arcade game room, and it was like all on the stream, and I was on there and hanging out, and hung out with some people, and I ended up kind of hanging around the I hung around the premises, but a couple days prior, I did book a return flight. So then I basically had to go catch an Uber from the Anime Expo grounds, like 1 o'clock in the morning, to go to the LAX to then catch a flight home. So I think that whole experience is definitely very high on the Kino meter of my life. Definitely was such a crazy thing. It was taken crazy. I mean, I didn't get on my return flight, and it ended up with me going over and doing all this crazy stuff. And that's like in my life, sometimes you take chances, and sometimes some fun stuff happens. Sometimes terrible things happen, but sometimes fun stuff happens, and that was such an occasion. So that was what I would rate, I think, off the top of my head. That's definitely a very high Kino moment.
Oh my God.
How is that real?
I know.
How's any of that real?
I was thinking that as you were talking. Like, how is any of this real? Any of it?
My VidCon stories are like, I'm tired, so I went to bed at like 7 and I missed everything. I mean, Matt can attest to that. How many things did you go to that occurred after dinner time that I did not go to? And the answer is all of them.
All of them. Yeah. And that's the way it works, is that like there tends to be early stuff because of Vsauce obligations. And so, it's an early start, and it's, 8, 9 o'clock, you get going, and a couple meetings and just all this, things that have to happen too. And then, a panel or whatever that you got to do. And it's a normal kind of 9 to 5 day, and then eat dinner. And it's like, well, I've just done this full day on my feet and talking the whole time, and so Kevin, you're not out of bounds for being tired and dipping off to bed. And then I tend to go out after that, because that's why another biblical one in Genesis, God invented Monster, Rockstar, Red Bull. It's all in there. We've got to make use of it. But yeah, no, it does add up though, because you got to have the late nights, and like Kino's in the chat. I think he's the only one in right now who's a VidCon alumnus. But yeah, he says you go to Rusty's house where no one goes to sleep until daybreak, and that's absolutely true. You get the Uber back from Rusty's place at 4 a.m. and get 3-4 hours of sleep, and wake up and then do the Vsauce stuff and slam it. And then by 4 days of that, you're really running on fumes, but so what? It happens once a year.
Absolutely.
I couldn't do that 200 days a year, but I can pull it out for 4 or 5 days and then go home and recover.
Yeah. But look, conversely, I go to like a work function and get food poisoning and am wiped out for 24 hours. And I miss my flight because I literally can't leave the bathroom. So
yeah.
Like, I have the worst story, the most boring story ever.
Bad.
Like, it's whatever the opposite of Kino is. And meanwhile, it's like, it's like Eggy's Big Adventure.
That's so true. That's why it's the top contender, because there was some other time I was the first time I went out there just to go and see LA. That was kind of fun in its own right though too, because I went out and I stayed at this Airbnb with this younger Asian woman who was a doctor, and it was just me and her there, and it was very interesting. It was a very interesting dynamic. It was very respectable. I was very polite and very respectful and everything like that, but at the same time it was like this chick who was like only a little bit older than me, and like there, and we were like watching movies together, like in her like living room and stuff, and it was very interesting, but it was all very polite and all very respectful. But I ended up, for whatever reason, this is something I always do. And I think this might have been the first case of this happening, but I did not book the Airbnb for my full actual stay that I was out there. So I spent some time sleeping in parking ramps, and I found that the Japantown parking ramp in LA, you would get 3 hours of, it was like, oh, you're here for 3 hours. Just like it's supposed to be for like you to go in and shop or whatever. So, but I didn't do that. I would go and I would sleep in the Japantown parking ramp for about 2.5 hours. And then there was like a Macy's parking ramp that was ticketed, but also was a 3 hour time. So you go to this one and you would pay your ticket or whatever. And so I would go, and I think I slept in there a couple times. So like I went and I would get my 2.5 hours of sleep. I'd drive my car back out, turn around and drive back in, get a fresh ticket, and then sleep another 2.5 hours. So I get a free sleep in my vehicle in a relatively secure area. And then right before that first time I was out there, I ended up going to Isla Vista, California. and they have a parking square in the thing where you had to pay to park there or whatever, but it was like an all day parking pass, and I don't think you were supposed to stay parking there until in the night, but I did. I went and walked the whole Isla Vista. I did some recording and stuff down there. I did an open mic while I was out there, and I got recognized by people on 4chan, and they posted about it at the time. This was a different trip, but it was the other time I was out in LA, or out in the area. And then then I ended up sleeping in the back seat of my vehicle because I had a parking pass, and nobody was going to tow me, I guess, after a certain time at night, it seemed like. So yeah, I've gotten in the habit. I know how to sleep in vehicles. I know how to do that, and so then I can take my $100 a night or whatever for a hotel and put it towards having more fun.
Oh, these are life hacks with Eggy.
Yes, sirree.
Chinchilla wants to know. It's an egg related question.
Okay.
Are you how to basic?
I am not. In fact, up until my sort of culinary renaissance that I experienced over this last year, I was so terrible at cooking, I could hardly even cook eggs. I was just that terrible. I was just completely, absolutely, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, like a lot of things in my life was sort of just, I have no idea what I'm doing at all. Zero perception, and I'm going to throw myself at the wall until I figure it out. And cooking was kind of something like that, but I did get a lot of instruction from YouTube videos. But yeah, basically I would only ever make scrambled eggs because I would just know I'll mix it up, I dump it in, and I kind of just move it around until it looks right. And so I learned that putting a little bit of cream cheese in your scrambled eggs, really top notch. It really takes it to another level, for the record. But anyways, I'm not how to basic. I'm not them. I'm not him.
We have just one or two more. See, actually, yeah, we can do the three of them because they're quick.
Cool.
From Kino, are you coming to Florida next month for Dick's show? This is Dick Masterson's the Dick Show
Road
live
Rage
event.
Yeah. I haven't booked it yet. However, I'm still planning on it, so I might be needing to book that pretty quick here. I've just been kind of busy with things, and I've been doing some investing and stuff. I've been kind of tying my money up in certain things, and so I was kind of just getting a few things in order in that regard. But I do believe, and also a concern had been for me, that it's possible that sort of a la South by Southwest from earlier in the year, that everything was all good and all ready to go, and then like the week beforehand it might get pulled or whatever. So I just wanted to make sure too that everything else was set up with me, everything else was solid with me, so that way if I go and all of a sudden something happens and it messes me up in that regard, that I'm having some spare money to negate, or to if I take a loss or whatever on a flight and hotel or whatever the case might be, that I'm having my other stuff kind of in rotation first. So I am planning on it. I don't have it together yet, so I should probably do that pretty soon. But all the same, I do believe that I should be able to attend. So yeah.
Okay, cool. And by the way, on flights, this is for anybody listening right now, the carriers are awfully friendly on rebookings because they know that the rules are changing constantly. States like New York, like today, they just changed whether you have to quarantine or get tested on the way in, stuff like that. So yeah, they're pretty friendly on cancellations and stuff like that. So yeah, number one, take a look at all the updated policies on flight booking and trip planning. But number two, realize that right now it is pretty friendly because they do understand that everybody is like just completely nuts and nobody knows what's happening from one day to the next.
Yeah, that kind of is one thing too, where I feel that even though the flights I've been taking this year, it's still been, because I took like 4 or 5, actually 6 flights in the last couple months, going between Kentucky and Rhode Island and home again. Anyway, I guess that's one thing, is that there's been a lot of layovers because I think they're just running less flights. So it's like a lot of like, you fly to this big hub and then go from there. But I would imagine that the hotels are probably going to be relatively not super full. So that's one thing too that I can, like, in my mind, I'm a very procrastinating, disorganized person. So like in my mind, I'm like, well, just give it another day. The room's still going to be there. I'm not worried about it. But I should get to it.
Yeah, you got options. So what's it like being a de facto co-host of Trash Rats with Rusty Cage and Reactor?
Well, I like those guys very much, and I tell you what, that's one thing for sure, because I've followed Mumkey for, we came from the same place. He went a different route, a little bit more successful, a little more kind of different, but we sprouted from the same seed, so to speak, like the same kind of like culture. So, and I always really enjoyed everything he did very much. I still do. I really like what he does. And I like their podcast very much. So to be able to be at this level that I'm at, if however you want to define that, I like to try and stay humble. I don't like to act like I'm all that, but to be wherever I'm at, to where I could, talk to those guys and kind of chill with them, even outside of the podcast, talk to them a little bit extra on Discord and stuff like that. I really like what they do. So I feel very happy about that. And it's my pleasure to be, to be a recurring guest.
All right. Well, we have one more question for you, and then we'll get you out of here on that. And, we've been going kind of long here, but I'll be honest. I needed to know the gas station stuff. Matt needed to know the cigarette stuff. There are just things in life that you need to know, and you have to take the time for it.
We've spent months, Kevin and I have spent months talking about wanting to talk to you. Like we truly have. This has been almost a weekly thing, and we're like, oh no, we want to make sure we have enough time, and all these other people have booked in advance, so like the slot isn't available. Just so there were all these things conspiring to make it delayed, but yeah, if you were up for a 7 or 8 hour podcast recording, we'd be down. Like we would absolutely be ready.
If you want to do a Patreon exclusive extended bonus episode, I don't know if you guys do that or whatever, but sometime, hey, you know what? I'll be around. I've been like I said, I've had those times where I'm just laying in bed and I'm face down in the mattress and saying, whatever. And I'm kind of on the opposite of that right now. I've been trying to be a little more on top of my what I'm doing, so I'm all with it.
Yes.
Nice.
Big thumbs up to being on top of what you're doing. It's what we're all about here at the Create Unknown, is making stuff and meaning things and all of that sort of jazz. But in the spirit of that, we love to show off and highlight the creativity of our guests. That's kind of the point of this show. And one of the ways that we'd like to do that is to ask our guests to come up with a fictitious ad read. We need a sponsor for our episode, and we don't know what it is. Only you do. And because you have such a unique talent for freestyling, I was hoping perhaps you would be open to the idea of doing an ad read for this episode of the Create Unknown as a freestyle.
I would be extremely happy to do that. So you want me to just get right to it? Just go right in off the top of the dome?
Yeah, the stage is yours.
Yeah. All right, hold up. Okay. All right, this your boy, Egg White. We're checking it in. We keep it hotter than the skillet. I know that you feel it. Oh, I'm talking about the realest. Let's get it. All right. Ooh. I'm out here on Create Unknown, listening to it through your phone, headphones in your home. Boy, we put you in your zone. Go and throw the dog a bone. Throw the girl, she get it gone. Yeah, that we've been on for a couple hours long. Ooh, yeah, a couple hours strong. Ooh, yeah, my words, I got that ping pong. Yeah, they got that bounce. Oh, yeah, they got at least a pound, not an ounce, kilogram. You know that I am the man. Me and Kevin, yeah, we're gonna jam. Me and Tabor, we never bore. Never, that when we shoot, we score. Ooh, we're on top of the board. Yeah. Ooh, running the points up. I might be thumbing them joints up. Yeah, talking about the paper. Ooh, we cannot see a hater. Nah, boy, you try us, we'll annihilate you. Yeah, we're talking through logic and facts. Yeah, we kicking it like a kickback. Yeah, I feel like a pimp named Slickback. Ooh, yeah, what else? Oh, you ought to tune in ASAP. If you haven't been listening, boy, you better listen now and lately and yesterday and today and tomorrow, boy. If you don't got enough dollars for the Patreon, $2, boy, you better borrow. It shouldn't have much interest, but we got a lot of interest in everything that we do, so you better listen in on YouTube. Ooh, let's go.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, that was amazing.
You. That for our patrons who are joining us, you just heard our new theme song recorded live on Discord.
And Baseweight says, yeah, I'm going to make a beat for that.
Yes. See, that's the good thing, Eggy, about our community is a lot of creators, obviously. So we have musicians, we have YouTubers, we have illustrators. It runs the gamut. So lots of good creative works always come out from our community. So it was great to have you as part of it. Thank you so much for making the time and being on top of your game with us.
My pleasure. I appreciate you very much for having me on. I was very happy to be a part. Thank you.
All right. And thanks for sticking with us for this recording, patrons. If you want to join us in the future, just go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown. become a $2 tart, or $2 tart, you know?
$2 tart if you'd like, yeah.
It's cool. We are non-judgmental. We really are. We're open to it all. So thanks, everyone. See you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We'd like to extend a huge thank you and a congratulations to the listeners who made our Save the Babies drive a success. Many new $2 Tots and Dumpster Crew members, you have saved tiny little lives. A tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang. Tredsdead, Boromir, Bot Dogs, Chinchilla, Cat, Isaac, Conrad, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Patrick Pister, Baseweight, and our newest sweet little babies, Dojangles and the Catboy Laterment. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry, Jen Maffasanti, Kevin with an E. Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Risebread, Sean Malone, triple question mark, Monahim, and the newest recruit, Private First Class Ryan Kinder. Thank you to our producer and editor, Ben Webster, and our social media manager, Dan Yoshua. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production.